So the 2022 NHL entry draft has just concluded, and man, do we have a lot to talk about. And I say it not like it's some sort of annual thing where I talk about all these storylines in the draft, because I'm going to be honest, although I do really enjoy watching the draft, and I do enjoy the things that come out of it, the excitement of the things that people anticipate the most in the first round and whatnot normally die down pretty quickly. And I'm saying usually as soon as the morning after when the second round begins. But, this year in comparison to those previous years, I just feel like there's a lot more hype around the draft. Even after it's concluded, I feel like with all the storylines and craziness that has taken place, and just to name a few, you have the Chicago Blackhawks and what I feel is just an absolutely disastrous organization over there right now, as they traded essentially DeBrincat and Kirby Dach. DeBrincat, their 40-goal scorer, that's really rare to come across. They traded that for the 7th overall pick, in which they received Kevin Korchinski, who, I think they could have got at a much later stage in the draft, maybe a late first rounder. And then Kirby Dach, obviously 3rd overall, and he still had a ton of potential. He was just ruled with injuries throughout, the past 2 years, and they've already given up on him to move 10 spots down to a 13th overall selection in Frank Nazar. So I don't know about that, but it doesn't really seem that these decisions made by the management are all too promising. But, to name another story, you have Tony DeAngelo going to the Philadelphia Flyers to join forces with John Tortorella, so that should be pretty interesting. And, just another one, you have the Winnipeg Jets snagging Brad Lambert at 30th overall. What a steal that was. I was contemplating whether or not the Canucks should have taken him at 15, but man, what a bargain for 30th overall. The guy was supposed to go in the top 3 about a year ago, but dropped so heavily, so we'll see how that ends up turning out. But as you can see in today's title and thumbnail, I wanted to talk a little bit about the Montreal Canadiens and that whole fiasco involving Juraj Slafkovsky, Shane Wright, and the first overall pick. And I wanted to give my thoughts on whether or not the Canadiens made the right decision passing up on Shane Wright and choosing Juraj Slafkovsky with that pick. And I want to know your thoughts in the comment section below as well. Whether or not you're a Canadiens fan, what do you think about this pick? Will it lead the Canadiens to success, or are we seeing another Nail Yakupov in the making? I want to know all your thoughts. And if you are new around here, make sure you hit that subscribe button for new videos and hit that bell so you don't miss out on when I actually upload. But yeah, man, without further ado, let's actually get right into today's video. So I think it's no secret that most people, me included, are quite shocked that things ended up unfolding the way they did, with the Canadiens actually passing up on Shane Wright with that first overall pick. And I mean, for the right reasons. It just seems so clear, and I thought it was literally set in stone, especially after the Canadiens, when they got that first overall pick in the lottery, literally interviewed Shane Wright, and he stated that he was excited to play for the Montreal Canadiens. And I mean, keep in mind, at that time, I thought that was a little bit cocky, but even then, with all the accolades he's achieved, getting exceptional status, and, with just how highly touted he is, I thought there was no doubt. I mean, you had it to the point where you have Montreal Canadiens fans showing up to Shane Wright's practices on Kingston with Montreal Canadiens customized Shane Wright 51 jerseys. It was that crazy. And when I saw that, I was like, okay, I mean, this guy might be getting a little bit over his head here. He probably thinks he's already on the team, if anything. So if it was any shock to us that he didn't get selected first overall, imagine him, right? Because that's pretty insane. If you have all these Canadiens fans literally chanting your name as you're entering the arena yesterday, and then just to not even go onto that team, it's pretty demoralizing, I can imagine. But as cocky as I did think that Shane Wright was heading into the draft, I do think that he had every right to believe that he was deserving of getting that first overall pick. And not even just based off of the stuff that I mentioned before, because I'm looking at elite prospects right now, and if you actually go on Shane Wright's profile, you can see that on the rankings page, where it basically has a ton of different analysts and scouts and websites and their personal opinions on what they think the draft order is going to be when it actually does go down, you can see that all of these lists basically have Shane Wright at number 1, with the exception of Bob McKenzie. And this other website, I've never heard of it, it's called ISS Hockey. They also had Shane Wright projected to go number 2. So nothing below that. And it is quite shocking to go from basically sweeping the entire board with number 1 projected picks to falling completely out of it at number 4. And not like it was something that people expected. This was completely out of the blue. So it really does get you wondering, did something go down behind the scenes that we aren't aware of yet? Or was there just a lot of false hype about Shane Wright? And were the players selected in front of him actually better than him? to come to a conclusion here, let's quickly compare Shane Wright with Slafkovsky to see whether or not, the Canadiens actually did end up making the right choice. So Slafkovsky, obviously the 6'4" Slovakian, weighing in at 229 pounds. Absolutely ridiculous, man. And I think that 6'4" really does speak for itself because, to have a player that big and that strong at such a young age is really hard to come across. So it's pretty hard to pass up on that, especially when he's producing at the elite level. As you can see, he played in the World Championships earlier this year with Slovakia, where he put up 7 goals and 1 assist in 10 games. That's 8 points, and he was one of the best players out there, man. And I'm pretty sure it was obviously that performance in particular that really boosted his draft stock from being a player that went from the 4 to 5 range to battling it out with Shane Wright in the 1 to 2 spot. So for the Habs to completely switch up on Shane Wright and go with Slafkovsky last minute based off this sole performance, because let's be real here, if he didn't pop off in the international championships, he probably wouldn't have even been in this conversation. But the fact that they did decide to gamble is a little bit of a risk, because I'm not going to lie, this could potentially be just a flash in the pan since he didn't necessarily play that good in the Liga. He only got 10 points in 31 games played. But, you never know. Maybe he just improved and they thought going forward he'll play like this forever. But, I guess we're just going to have to wait and find out. So, I think this could potentially be a bit of a risk. But, honestly, with what he's already shown us and the fact that he's 6'4", 230, he's only 18 years old and he can only go up from here is really promising. So, I honestly think that the Canadiens fans shouldn't worry. And this is honestly a dub of a pick. I think that if I was currently a GM and I had that first overall pick, I would definitely go with Juraj Slafkovsky as my number 1. But this doesn't mean that Shane Wright's a bad player. I still think he was deserving of that second spot. I don't know how Nemec and Cooley got selected over top of him, but it's definitely going to make him want to work harder to prove to the Canadiens that they made a wrong choice not selecting him. As he said, man, he has a chip on his shoulder now, so he's going to be grinding it out. And who knows, if he was selected by the Habs first overall, maybe he would have been taking things a lot more lightly. He would have been a lot more cocky, and his foot would have been off the gas. He wouldn't have been grinding as much because he feels like he's already achieved all this success and stuff. But now that he's got a little bit of a reality check, he's going to be grinding it out, and I'm sure he'll be a great player for the Seattle Kraken. But, as for who's going to be better, it's too early to decide that. We'll make videos on that when they make their first NHL games and when they enter the league. So it's going to be a lot of fun to see how these players develop and transition into the NHL. But until then, we can only speculate. So thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and let me know, do you think the Canadiens made the right choice here selecting Slafkovsky over Shane Wright in this year's NHL entry draft? So be sure to catch you guys on the next one, and peace out.